Hey Fish Fam, today we're going to be looking at assembling the bottom of this large tank and some of the things that I think are important when you're working with plywood for tanks in general. One of the things that's important when you're working on a big tank made out of plywood is that you get the high quality furniture grade plywood where they've already finished the surface for you. So you can see here there's a couple spaces where the factory went in and applied a sealer and then sanded it smooth. This saves you not only an enormous amount of time, but it really ends up saving you money in the long run because the rough cut plywood that has some knot holes and things in it is cheaper. You will save on a very large tank about $100, but you'll spend more than $100 on sealers and sanding equipment and things like that you really don't need. So it ends up being better in the long run to just get the stuff that's already sealed, so you have minimal work. The other thing that I like to do is I like to just take a basic plan for what I need to a cabinet shop. Now, the local cabinet guy behind me is really great when I work with him. I get this wood about $20 a sheet cheaper than it is at Lowe's, so I get a discount on the wood. He cuts it for me. It's $20 usually when he cuts it, so it ends up being the same price as getting it in a hardware store, but I don't have to find a place to put in an enormous table saw and the support structures to let me do 8-foot sheets of wood. I get everything exactly. Everything here is cut within like 1/100th of an inch precision. Obviously wood swells and shrinks, so it's not really that precise, but his cutting equipment is. So I'm able to give him just a basic design, and he will work out the rest. Now, I did screw up. You can see here, this is the sheet that I gave him. I think I messed one of them up because out of all of this, one piece was this much too long for this piece over here, and I haven't gone in to double check if that was a screw up on my end or a screw up on his end, but it's a really quick, easy thing to fix, so it wasn't a huge deal. And I like to have a small block of wood when you're putting these together anyways, so that you can make sure that you get a nice straight edge on your corners. And you can see here I've got wood on wood, and the reason for this is there's going to be an enormous amount of pressure going out at the bottoms here. So doubling up the bottom edges is important to make sure that it's not going to tear the wood. Secondly, each of these sections here are full 8-foot sheets. So there's seams where the wood ends. Anywhere that there's a seam, I am doubling up, adding additional plywood, so there are no seams anywhere. This stops me from having to do a lot of fiberglassing, it stops me from having to sand that down, and it really is going to give me a much better seal than fiberglass wood with the amount of water that's going to be in here. If you're going to be doing a 20-25 inch deep tank, fiberglass is fine, but I'm doing a full 48 inches. It's just going to be a problem to have any sort of cracking. This thing is way too big for me to flip up, fiberglass the bottom, flip down, and fiberglass this side. It can't happen. The ceiling is not 13.5 feet tall to allow me to flip this thing. So when this is down, when this is assembled, it is here for good. So you can see I've got some odd designs here in cutting in order to accomplish covering all of the cracks, all of the pieces that are fit together. These are things that would be very hard to do by hand with any sort of accuracy, so getting somebody with a CNC cutter saves an enormous amount of time and headache. When you assemble these, you want to make sure that you have a really good layer of wood glue between them, because the wood glue is going to end up being stronger than the wood itself. It will functionally join them and give you a solid sheet of wood. I really like the Titebond 3 Ultimate Waterproof. Gorilla also makes a very good waterproof wood glue, but it's hard to find usually. But this one and the Gorilla one are exceptionally strong. A lot of the other brands that I've tried, they're garbage. You know, Elmer's makes one. I've never had any good luck with that. The non-waterproof Gorilla holds pretty well, but if you have any sort of water mess while you're going, or if you find a leak early on, you can end up losing the structural integrity of entire sections of your tank. So it's generally a better idea to go with the waterproof, at least for that. For joining these, you want screws that are as long as you can get away with. So I've got some which just touch the floor underneath, just a hair. And the concrete should knock the nub off of this as it goes in. It should sit flush, and it will go the entire length of both of these boards. If you do something shorter, it'll still work because 99% of your strength in this is going to be the glue. I just really like to have the added security of these so that there's no possibility of shearing. Application of the glue, because it's a large surface area, usually if you're doing a smaller section you can just do a crisscross pattern. For this, because this is going to have an enormous amount of pressure dragging this way, I'm actually going to be applying the wood glue with a brush so that I get full coverage, because I really don't want gaps in the strength on this causing separations that can cause any sort of gap here, because a gap here is going to result in a crack in my silicone, and it's going to result in a leak that destroys not only the tank, but my room. Make sure you have a clean surface before you start gluing anything. It's a good idea to get yourself a small brush of some sort to make sure that you can get rid of any grit. Things like footprints and stuff like that don't really matter. You just want to make sure there's nothing that's going to stop your wood from making a clean contact.